Well, good morning. It's 9:05, so we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Catherine Hansen-Kin, and I am with the Greater Los Angeles Federal Executive Board. The Greater Los Angeles Federal Executive Board is an organization that works with the 275 federal agencies that are in the 6 counties that make up the Greater Los Angeles area. I am honored to be a member of the Government to University Alliance, which we call G2U. The Los Angeles Alliance is led by the Southern California Association of Governments, which we call SCAG, and the Pardee Grand Graduate School. We are grateful to SCAG for their audiovisual support of this career exploration series. I will drop a link in the chat box about the G2U program if you want to learn more. The Los Angeles G2U initiative launched just over a year ago, and one of our projects in this is a 7-month career exploration series. Each series features a different major and occupation. And this is the first in the series, and we welcome your feedback so we can make future ones even better. There are literally thousands of government agencies in the Los Angeles area that are looking for talent. And we hope that today's session will inspire you to consider public service, which is a noble calling. You wouldn't know it by the number of attendees we have at the moment, but we have a very large number of individuals who registered for this session. So because of the size of the audience, we will be taking your questions and comments in the Q&A box, and they will be monitored by the moderator as well as myself, and we will do the best to make sure all your questions are answered during the session. I will also get a text copy of the Q&A box, so if there's any follow-up items, I will do that after the session. I wanted to let you know that the closed captioning is turned on. If you don't want to see it, you can turn it off on your own screen. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you our moderator, and he will in turn introduce the panelists. Our moderator today is C. Augusta or Gus Martin, and he is a professor of criminal justice at the California State University, Dominguez Hills. He's also served as Associate Vice President for Human Resources Management, Acting Associate Dean of the College of Business Administration and Public Policy, Assistant Vice President for Faculty Affairs, and the Chair of the Department of Public Administration. He began his academic career as a member of the faculty of the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs at the University of Pittsburgh, where he was an Administration of Justice professor. His current research and professional interests are terrorism and extremism, Homeland Security, and the administration of justice. Dr. Martin is author of several books on the subject of terrorism and Homeland Security, including Essentials of Terrorism, Concepts and Controversies, Understanding Terrorism, Challenges, Perspectives, and Issues, Understanding Homeland Security, Terrorism and International Perspective, and the Sage Encyclopedia of Terrorism, Terrorism and Homeland Security, and the New Era of Terrorism Selected Readings. He's also the author of Juvenile Justice, Process and Systems. Prior to joining academia, Dr. Martin served as managing attorney for the Fair Housing Partnership of Greater Pittsburgh. He was also special counsel to the Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands on the island of St. Thomas. Prior to serving as special counsel, he was a floor legislative assistant to Congressman Charles Rangel of New York. He received his AB degree from Harvard College and his JD from Duquesne University School of Law, and PhD from the Graduate School of Public and International Affairs at the University of Pittsburgh. So Dr. Martin embodies the G2U. In fact, he's worked as a government employee and at the university, so he's the perfect person to serve as today's moderator. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Martin.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hansen, and good morning to everyone. And I'd like to introduce our very esteemed panel. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to put them into the chat box, the chat room, and we will address your questions. What I would like to do is just introduce everyone now and then begin asking a few questions about their background. So the first person I'd like to introduce is Officer Daniel Haas. He is a recruitment officer for the Long Beach Police Department Support Bureau. And then Captain John Zizi of the California Highway Patrol, the South Los Angeles Area Office. Courtney E. Williams, Human Resource Specialist for the FCI Terminal Island Facility. And Yvette Rivera. She's a special agent in the Office of Public and Congressional Affairs for the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So please welcome everyone. And if you have any questions for a particular panelist, again, feel free to address it directly to that panelist and we'll entertain your question. So beginning with Officer Haas, I'd like you to, if you could you please give your professional biography, essentially telling the participants what are the nature of your position and your duties, and is there any such thing as a typical day? So Officer Haas, I turn it over to you if you could do that.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend. Like it was said, my name is Daniel Haas, and I'm a police officer with the Long Beach Police Department, and I have worked here for just over 17 years. My current full-time job is I'm our full-time lead recruiter for the police department. So it's my job to go out and give information about our police department, different opportunities within our police department, and encourage people to apply for our police department to fill jobs that we have. In general, the majority of our police officers are patrol officers. And so the short answer to, is there a typical day? No, there is no typical day. The day of a patrol officer, which again is the majority of our working officers here, is essentially based on the needs of the public that day. So you could go to 25 or 30 calls that day. You could go to one major call that day. That is kind of the beauty of working as a patrol officer, because there is no typical day. It's a fresh day every day, and there's always something new and exciting. But typical duties for a patrol officer is to respond to calls for service, emergency calls for service, non-emergency calls for service. But it's also an obligation to go out there and be with the public, and go out there and stop and talk to people and introduce yourself and let yourself know that we're there for the service of the community. And so we do have a lot of different job opportunities, a lot of different positions within the police department where the day and the work can vary. And I have no problem kind of sharing about a lot of those different positions that we have as we go throughout the panel discussion today.
Thank you, Officer Haas. And if I could ask Captain Zizi to answer the same questions, essentially, what is your professional biography? What is the nature of your position? What are your duties? And do you have any such thing as a typical day?
So thank you again. Joe Zizi, Highway Patrol in the South Los Angeles office. Our CHP office serves the entire South Bay, South Los Angeles, if you will. The Highway Patrol, we are essentially the state police. So in addition to the highways, we do all state buildings, crimes against state employees, constitutional officials, protect the governor, and all of the state assets. So my professional biography, it's going to be my 22nd year. Very proud to be with this department, very professional department. A typical day, yes, I agree with Officer Haas. There is not a typical day for any of us here on this department. Back to the biography, I apologize. I've risen through the ranks to the position of captain, which is the commander of the station. I manage this station, the officers, the sergeants, the lieutenants here, the patrol operations here, the special investigations here. Prior to that, I was at our communications center with 190 dispatchers, public safety dispatchers that answer 911 calls and dispatch all of our officers. That's based in Eagle Rock. And prior to that, as a state police, we're often assigned to collateral duties, other agencies. I was the interim assistant chief of the Department of Public Safety. It's a small police department, the 160 acres of Exposition Park, where all the museums and the big Coliseum is. So through all these assignments, it's really served to help me do my duties here at South LA office.
Thank you, Captain Zizi. Very impressive, very interesting. And Ms. Williams, Courtney Williams, again, what is your professional biography? What is the nature of your position? What are your duties? Do you have a typical day? And if you could, explain what FCI Terminal Island is.
Good morning, everyone. My professional biography is I've been with the Bureau of Prisons for 21 years. I started in entry level as a unit secretary. I moved on to be the captain secretary, a county tech, and now I'm a human resource specialist. So what I do is I hire new applicants. I'm in charge over benefits and payroll and stuff like that. A typical day, there's no typical day in a federal prison. Any day, we're all correctional workers first. That's why we get paid law enforcement pay. So at any typical day, we could all be called to do shakedowns in one unit if they got, someone told them that there's something going on in the unit. So they pull all of us out there to shake down the unit to find, drugs or anything that's going on. Or there could be a disturbance at any given time, and we're all, pulled to become correctional officers.
Thank you very much, Ms. Williams. And final panelist is Special Agent Yvette Rivera. Could you please give us your professional biography? What is the nature of your position? What are your duties? And is there any such thing as a typical day?
Good morning, everybody. I've had the privilege of serving as a special agent for the last 17 and a half years. In that role, I've worked white collar investigations, violent crimes. Currently, I'm in the Office of Public and Congressional Affairs, which means that I get to assist with the recruitment of personnel to the FBI. As far as what a special agent does, it's an investigative role. And I guess I get to wear many hats in the sense that even though I happen to be in recruitment, I am still able to assist with, for example, if there's a canvas for a large takedown, or if unfortunately there is a bombing. Essentially, it's all hands on deck. And we routinely work with our local and state partners, especially when we do command posts for those type of events. And then I'm a physical fitness advisor, which means that I assist with the administering of the physical fitness test for our special agent applicants. I would echo my colleagues' sentiments. There isn't a typical day. Your day could involve lots of paperwork, I guess, if you're following up on interviews you did, or if you're preparing for a search, it might involve a lot of review, a lot of documents in order to prepare that affidavit. But it could also mean, going to an arrest and then, an interview later on in the afternoon. So definitely a lot of different things that can happen throughout the day, depending on what's going on, not only on your cases, but field office wide.
Thank you very much, Special Agent. And again, if any of the participants have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat box, and we will answer any questions that you may have. What I would like to do is move into a bit deeper, just dig a bit deeper about the professional stories of the panelists. And what we would like to do here is talk about your personal paths to choosing a career. Why did you choose this vocation? And I use the word vocation because these are not jobs. These are vocations, and it's not what you do, it's who you are. And then if you could describe your sense of satisfaction or accomplishment with your vocation. And again, I'd like to begin with Officer Haas. Can you explain your personal path to choosing this career? Why did you choose it? And what is your sense of satisfaction or accomplishment?
Thank you. So there's a couple of ways for me to answer this. One, I'll start with, I was born and raised here in the city of Long Beach. So it was a natural progression for me to figure out a way to serve the city that I grew up in, the city that gave me so much growing up. But as I was getting into my late teens and early 20s prior to applying to the police department, I had this real drive to work with youth and to also make a difference and to be able to help people as well. The opportunity came around for me to apply for the police department, and I was lucky enough to be selected. And the beauty, or one of the beauties of our police department, is you have the opportunity to do things that may not necessarily be typical police work. Because I had this drive to work with youth, I've had the opportunity to work at a place we had called the Police Athletic League, where we worked with youth ages 7 to 17, doing mentoring. I had the opportunity to co-create a youth leadership academy where we worked with local high schools and have provide those kids with opportunities for service projects and service hours. And then we also have the opportunity to go back out, like I mentioned, working with the community. I'm in charge of our basketball program, where we get to go out and play fundraising events, to go out and play basketball games at the local high schools and colleges, and just get to intermingle with the community that way. And so that was really a big push for me to want to jump into law enforcement, to be able to make a difference, but to also be able to work with our youth. And there's been plenty of opportunities with the Long Beach Police Department for me to be able to do that. And obviously, you know, I've seen some grins and some smiles from the other colleagues on the panel. Anyone who gets to work with youth, there's an automatic sense of accomplishment and satisfaction seeing the youth, similar to you growing up in your city, just be able to succeed, be able to receive services, and just have a great time and go on to bigger and better things.
Very good. And I should point out that you are talking about being integrated into the community. It isn't simply policing, driving by in a car, or just patrolling. You're very much integrated into the community, which is very important, as we know. So if I could now, with Captain Zizi, could you please describe why you chose this vocation? What is your personal path to choosing this career? And could you describe your sense of satisfaction or accomplishment, and why that is?
Certainly. So I was an international business and marketing major at Cal Poly Pomona, exploring my options as far as what I was going to do. Generations before me and my family have been in the freight forwarding business, involved with the port, shipping containers out of the country. Just law enforcement recruiter from the Highway Patrol struck me that this has always been an agency that I've kept my eye on, that have visited schools, my schools in the past, elementary, junior high. I've seen their helicopter land. Some of you will remember the CHIP series, you know, people gravitate toward watching that. So more exploration, several jobs, and this is the one that sort of kept tempting me. And I really, again, the moderator here, I really commend you for this series, because whatever your heart is telling you to do, I encourage you to do it, whether it's law enforcement or something else. Went into this path. The application process took about 1.5 years, and was able to get in the Sacramento Academy. It's a live-in academy, and went from there. As far as the sense of accomplishment, I've done everything from recruiter to public affairs officer, to partnering with other agencies, to managing our 300 free tow truck operators on Los Angeles County freeways, our Chips for Kids toy program. Like there were so many opportunities for law enforcement officers to give back. And so much of it, I think I just saw a question, something that you'd be curious about that other people didn't know about law enforcement, is so much of it is off the clock. There are so many volunteer opportunities off the clock that you may go in uniform and not tell your supervisor about, but it represents positively the law enforcement image. And you do get satisfaction from seeing those smiling faces. I tell you, the one thing that we get every day is we're driving down the street and we get that thumbs up, you know, of support. And I think that motivates the officer to continue serving the community that they pledge to serve.
And I think building on what you said, and also what Officer Haas said, there's this sense of service to the community, service. And so that's what I mean when I say this is not a job. This is truly a vocation, and that's the best way to think about it. So for Ms. Williams, Courtney Williams, could you please also describe or discuss your personal path to choosing your career? Why did you choose this vocation? And could you describe your sense of satisfaction or accomplishment and why you have that?
So my dad has always been my hero. He served the military for 26 years. And so I always thought I wanted to work in some kind of federal agency. So a family friend told me, you know, get 3 years of supervision under your belt and come work for the Bureau of Prisons with us. And I'm so happy I chose the Bureau of Prisons, because it's an accomplishment to help protect the community with, you know, being a correctional worker and making sure that inmates don't escape and nothing happens here. When I started the Bureau of Prisons 21 years ago, it was always my dream to be in human resources, because I wanted to help other people get into the Bureau of Prisons and, hire people. Recently, I just joined a partnership with US Vets in Long Beach. And so now I'm going out into the community like once a month and helping vets apply for jobs with the Bureau of Prisons. I'm looking at their resumes, showing them how to use USA Jobs and stuff like that. So it's so rewarding to give back to our vets that have served our country.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Special Agent Rivera, same questions to you. What was your personal path to choosing your career? Why did you choose this vocation? And can you describe your sense of satisfaction or accomplishment and why you have that?
The FBI wasn't something that I ever considered. In fact, my undergrad degree is in biology because my sole purpose was to be a doctor. That was the goal. And then when I graduated from undergrad, I didn't think I was equipped to go to medical school and be successful. I believed I needed more experience. I knew it. I had heard it was competitive and I wanted to succeed. So I thought if I get out there and get more experience, then I can apply to med school and be successful. So I ended up going through considering different volunteer programs like Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, similar organizations like that. And I was fortunate to get into a one-year program that allowed me to volunteer for a year full-time. And then ended up in grad school, still with the goal, I'm going to go to med school. And it was actually there that there was a career shift change. So at the time, I worked several jobs, mostly social service, public health. And I think that, for the attendees, I think sometimes, experiences, you start kind of rethinking, how you grew up or some of the opportunities you've had. And I became more interested in like policy and advocacy. I decided at that time I wanted to apply to law school instead. And of course, I already had a lot of student debt. And so I applied, but then deferred for a year because I still was working full time and paying all those bills and student loans and all that. And then while researching online, just to see what opportunities existed out there, I came across the FBI website. And so what resonated with me about the special agent position is that up to that point, when I came across the vacancy, I really had been very fortunate that every opportunity I had was in service. Like I want to do a job that allows me to contribute, to be helpful in some way. And then the second piece of it was the challenge. I had no law enforcement experience, but I quickly learned that that wasn't a requirement. That if gotten the opportunity to join, the FBI Academy could assist me with learning all those, the foundation of law enforcement. And so I applied, and then I realized this is where I belong, and thus it became my career. And so I know it kind of seems all over the place, and I know that sometimes people kind of think, that your degree maybe necessarily leads you to your future career path, but sometimes you realize that there's things out there that maybe someone will share or tell you about, and then, you end up realizing this is where you want to be for the rest of your, professional career. So.
Very interesting, fascinating, actually. And many of us have had that experience where you have that moment of clarity and you realize this is the path you're going to take. But if you selected any path before that, your life would be completely different. And that is something that the participants should keep in mind too. There is time to make your selection, but once you make that selection, your life will be different. Now, we do have a question in the chat box. We actually have two. I'd like to ask the first one. This is from Mr. Peter Morrissey. He's asking, I'd love to hear any panelists share what they think would surprise an applicant most about their agencies or roles, which is an interesting question. What would surprise an applicant most about your agency or your roles? And please feel free to answer. Let me ask each of you that question, if that's all right. Officer Haas, could you explain what might surprise an applicant most about your agency?
Well, I think one of the things that that surprises people that the city of Long Beach is just about 55 square miles, and we are because we are technically kind of in the shadow the Los Angeles Police Department and perhaps the Sheriff's Department, which are gigantic agencies, we actually have just about 800 police officers who work for our city. So we're, one of the surprising things is we're not a very small department. So it surprises people to kind of hear that. And another thing that surprises people is the amount of civilian positions that we have available with our police department. So we have just about 800 sworn police officers, but we have just about 400 to 500 civilians who work for our police department as well. So the amount of opportunities are quite vast.
Thank you very much. Captain Zizi, same question to you. What would surprise most applicants about the California Highway Patrol?
I think most of our patrol officers get it a lot when they make a traffic stop on a city street or in an unincorporated area saying, what is the highway patrol doing here on the street? And as you know, any peace officer has peace officer powers within the entire state of California. So the highway patrol, not only do we do freeways, but we do traffic in all unincorporated county areas.
And that's interesting because and just anecdotally, I actually called the police from where I live, and the highway patrol came, as did the Sheriff's Department, as did LAPD, as did the Culver City Police Department, and they began discussing whose jurisdiction it was. And meanwhile, I'm standing there, which is very amusing to me. So thank you very much. And Ms. Williams, could you please describe what would surprise an applicant most about the FCI system?
I think that a lot of people, when they think of like a federal prison, they think about what they see on TV. So I think a lot of people are surprised when they do start here. They see all the programming we have here for MH to transition eventually into the world again. So a lot of people are surprised that we have our like religious services. We have it for all the different religions, and we have a lot of inmates get like their GEDs, or they even get degrees here because we have colleges come out and teach. So that's something that does surprise people that don't know many things about the Bureau of Prisons or just a federal prison, is that we do have a lot of programming for our inmates so that they can transition back into the world and be good citizens again.
Very good. And just as a question, I know my students would ask this, do you emphasize rehabilitation?
Absolutely. We're really big on that. We have the first, I think it's called the First Class Act. It's something that they are building these inmates up to make sure that they are able to survive in the real world. So there's a lot of programming, new programming that we have here. And especially with drug offenders, we have different things for them too.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Special Agent Rivera, what do you think would surprise an applicant most about the Federal Bureau of Investigation?
I would echo Courtney's sentiment. I think that the TV unfortunately highlights only one career, which is the investigative role, but the FBI hires from all professional disciplines and educational backgrounds. We hire people that work in the lab, computer scientists, IT personnel, auditors, accountants, administrators. And so, you know, we are to say, but we are a business like everyone else. You know, people get paid, people travel. And so in order to be able to function in that format, we hire from all professional backgrounds.
Very good. So would it be accurate to say that someone coming out of college in virtually any discipline may become an employee?
That is accurate.
Good. Thank you. And we have another question. And Captain Zizi, you don't have to get into details necessarily about this. What is the purpose of the black band on your badge?
Unmute there. Thank you, a commenter, for asking. So Highway Patrol, we will place a mourning ribbon on our badge if any agency within California loses one of its members in the line of duty. We've all stood up and we've sworn to the oath that we will lay down our life rather than swerve from the path of duty. Unfortunately, on the 10th, 2 days ago, a San Luis Obispo police officer was killed in the line of duty. And then yesterday, a Stockton police officer was killed in the line of duty. So we will wear this mourning ribbon until they are laid to rest.
And that is something that is, it's a reality check. Very often students and others will sort of theoretically understand what the nature of the job is, but these incidents are reality checks for everyone, I think. So, well, bless the two officers. So let us ask, there's one more question from the chat that I'd like to pose to everyone, and we'll get into this in more detail in a moment, actually. But they're asking, how can we make our application stand out if we are making a pivot in our careers? And that's the key thing, a pivot in one's career, not necessarily their first application, but someone who's already in the workforce, but they want to make that change. And that's a very legitimate question, because, and as you answer this, could you also explain, age limits or something along those lines also? I mean, is there a point at which they cannot apply to one's, to your agency? So let's do this again, beginning with Officer Haas. How can one make their application stand out if they are making a pivot in their career?
So I'll answer the second part of that first about the age ranges. You have to be 20 and a half at the time you start our academy, but there is no age cap. As long as you can pass all of the tests, there is no age cap for you to get into our police academy. As far as pivot, this is a tremendous question, because we do have some people coming into our police academies who are coming in a second or third careers. And that's one of the other beauties of law enforcement, I think, not to speak for everybody, but I think that there isn't a specific mold that is a police officer. In fact, I would argue that there's more of a community service, public service aspect to policing right now than perhaps more than there ever has been. And so there's the bringing people in from other careers that are not law enforcement related. A lot of the skills that you can bring from another job into our police department are tremendous. I mean, you could be someone who flies helicopters. We have pilots who come in and then they come in and they become police officers. I mean, the stories I could tell could be never ending on people who've come here as second careers. But the customer service aspect in policing is huge right now, and it should have always been huge, and it is right now. But any position that you may be coming from into law enforcement, there are skills that you can bring here to be valuable. And I would admit, to talk about the application specifically, I would highlight those things, because the fact is we're in the business of people. So figure out ways to highlight the skills that you've taken from those other jobs to help people who are in all aspects and all stages of life, because that's who you're going to come in contact with as a police officer.
Thank you. That's actually very, very interesting for anyone who might be interested, that, one's background sort of makes them can make them a very well-rounded applicant. Captain Zizi, could you please also answer this? How can one make their application stand out if they're making a pivot in their careers? And I did raise the question of whether there are application limits such as age. So if you could just comment on that.
So for officer, the age is 20 to 35. With the state officer, they have to retire at a certain age. So we have to start you by age 35. So if you're over that age, we have 154 different other job classifications that you could apply for. I agree with Officer Haas. It has to be different segments of the population, especially one that represents a community that they're serving. And life experience is huge for us. We don't want someone that has just come straight out of high school, because there is just zero life experience. And we've had quite a few people, the state psychologists who they're evaluated by before employment, have said, this individual is just too mature and there's just not life experience behind this. So when you're talking about pivoting from another career, it's ideal. I wouldn't necessarily make your resume about any type of law enforcement guided background, if you will, but really truly how you've branched out and developed yourself as a human being, because that's what we're looking for. And while we're talking about employment, now is the best time to get on to any police agency. I'm not sure about Long Beach, but with the Highway Patrol, our applications are down. And maybe it's the current climate with law enforcement that we may talk about later. But right now, I think it's the best opportunity to start applying. So with us, it's recruitment.chp.ca.gov for uniformed jobs and dispatch jobs. And for all the 154 other classifications you can see right away is calcareers.ca.gov.
Very good. Thank you very much. And you mentioned that this is a good time to apply. So I guess one thing that we'll come back to is whether there are cycles of employment, of hiring, cycles of recruitment, that kind of thing. Because as we know, not every agency is always recruiting. So we'll comment on that a little bit later. Thank you very much. Ms. Williams, could you please also address this? How can one make their application stand out if they're making a pivot in their careers? And actually, as a human resource specialist, you probably have many stories about that.
Yes. Currently the Bureau of Prisons is in a hiring frenzy. We've opened all jobs, every single job we have, which is 121 jobs we have open across the Bureau of Prisons right now. And we open them to the community. We were not doing merit promotions, and what merit promotions are is internal promotions. So we stopped those for 120 days. And we are doing this hiring frenzy again. And so a lot of times we are having recruitment events every month, and we have applicants coming in and we're helping them with their resumes. And one thing I've always told every single applicant is the federal government, they like long resumes. A lot of these applicants come in with a one-pager, and I'm like, this is not enough. This is not going to qualify you. When you apply in USA Jobs, you need to give like every single detail of the jobs you've ever worked. So I am always telling them to any customer service they've ever done, include that. Any training they've ever given to any individual, whether it's training them on how to, change anything, they have to be really detailed. Any kind of supervision, if they've watched over a group, anything like that, it helps the resume. With the Bureau of Prisons, we require either a degree of 4 years or 3 years of supervision. So that's another key point that I like to tell my applicants. And right now, our age requirement is at the time of appointment, you have to have, you cannot be 37. So you have to join the Bureau of Prisons before your 37th birthday. Just because our mandatory age requirement is we all retire at 57.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Special Agent Rivera, the same question. How can one make their application stand out if they're making a pivot in their careers? And then do you have any limitations on when one can apply within their lifespan?
Sure. Yes, applicants applying specifically to this particular role do have to be at least 23 years old. And we advise no older than 36 at the time they submit their application. You need to start the academy training by your 37th birthday. And because the process can take at least a year, thus why we want to make sure you don't apply later than 36, because it's unlikely you'll get processed by the time you're 37. There are 2 caveats to the age. If you're a current federal law enforcement officer or are a veteran, depending on what role you had when you transitioned out of the military, and that can be determined based on your DD 214. So we review that, and if it qualifies, then you can apply with those 2 caveats regardless of age. And so what happens is those applicants that meet those caveats can continue in the process. And once they successfully pass the entire application process, at the end of that timeline, the office that's processing them will request an age waiver to headquarters on their behalf, and headquarters makes the final determination as to whether they approve the age waiver or not. So it's not a guarantee, but what I tell applicants is if this is a career you want, then you've got to go through that process. In regards to how to stand out, you need a minimum of a bachelor's and a minimum of 2 years of professional work experience. I would say this agents in the FBI pretty much encompass every career. We have electrical engineers, industrial engineers, teachers, social workers, computer scientists, principals. You can come from any profession the common denominator here is the skill sets. So those skill sets that my colleagues have indicated are translatable to different workforce environments: leadership, collaboration, communication, your ability to problem solve and use good judgment. Those are the skill sets we want to see outlined in your work experience in order to be able to assess whether you're competitive to move forward. And to echo Courtney on the resume, be thorough and elaborate, right? We want you to be able to tell us, what you bring to the table. And so the one-page standard that you typically see in the private sector does not work for a special agent's application process.
And I just have a question that has come up among my students. Historically and traditionally, the FBI essentially hired accountants and lawyers. And is that still a leg up if someone has that kind of background? Because you mentioned that you do look for people with a professional experience.
That it is accurate that at the beginning, when in the 1900s, when the FBI was created, traditionally lawyers and police officers were the people that the FBI was hiring. I would say that the campaign across the FBI and what you see as far as sort of piquing professionals' interest is, we want teachers, we want engineers, we want people that work in auditing. The reality is, there's no way we would be able to do our job if we only hired one professional career path, right? We're very rarely interviewing law enforcement or lawyers. We're interviewing the public, whether it be witnesses or subjects or whoever it might be. And there's a lot of things I don't know, but that is why if I don't know something, I know that I can go back to my engineer, colleague or teacher who maybe has experience in that particular, whatever that line of questioning might be. And so collaboratively as an organization, we can do our job because we have different personnel with different life experiences and different educational backgrounds. Otherwise, we would be ineffective.
Good, thank you. And there is one question for you, Special Agent Rivera. You may have addressed this, but the person is asking, the participant is asking, does this also consider city and county workers or just federal? And I assume they're talking about experience. Do you consider city and county experience also?
Sure. So the professional background you bring to the table, it's not about the title of your job. It's about what has that job allowed you to gain as far as when we're talking about specific skill sets. So the Bureau likes to, and every organization has their own terminology. The Bureau uses core competencies to mean skill sets. So there are 8 specific core competencies that we want to see in an applicant's resume as it pertains specifically to special agent. And so if you happen to be an educator or a social worker or in a county position or city position, the goal is the same. You want to make sure that your experience in those roles reflect those skill sets, because that's what headquarters is going to be reviewing to determine, are you competitive? When we send you to the academy, we don't need you to come in with specific experience or government work or law enforcement experience. We need you to come in with those leadership skills, with that wanting to do the job, not because you're told, but because you want to. We want you to be a team player. And so those things are going to make you successful, because, I would imagine my colleagues would say the same. Our academy training, our personnel at the academy are very good at teaching people that want to learn whatever it is that our organizations want to teach. But we, trying to convince someone to have initiative, to be a team player, we don't want to have to do that. We want those soft skills already have the applicant have those skill sets already.
Very good. Thank you very much, everyone. And let me move a little bit deeper into advice for interested applicants. And if I could, I'd like to ask each of the panelists, first of all, general advice for preparing for a career. And then when it comes to the application and recruitment process, it has been mentioned several times that there is a background check that has to take place. As one is preparing for a career in your agency, could you comment on just the general advice, but then also what is the background check process like, the actual application process like? So Officer Haas, I'd like to begin with you if that's okay.
Not a problem, my friend. So general advice for preparing for a career in law enforcement. I'll start by saying this. For the Long Beach Police Department, there are really 3 portions that you're going to go through. So it's the application process, the academy, and then field training. Okay. So each one of those steps is going to prepare you a little bit for the next step. Obviously, the first step that you're going to go into is the application and recruitment process. And I can tell you the 3 things that we see people struggle with the most in our police academy after they're hired is physical fitness, study skills, and adapting to simulated stress. Okay, so those are the 3 things that we tell you ahead of time. It's not a secret. We want you to kind of start working on some of those things to prepare yourself for that. And we actually offer some programs prior to for people who are in the application process to start working on some of those things. Our application process, depending on the size of the class that we plan to hire, can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. Our police academy is just under 6 months. Slightly different than CHP. We do also have our own police academy, but it is not a live-in academy. You go home every night from our police academy. And so that's just under 6 months. And then once you graduate from the academy, it's a year-long field training process where you're out there working with a seasoned officer, working in different areas of the city, working at different times of day, working at different divisions. And so to touch on the background process, the background process is the longest part of the application process. We have our own background investigations sergeant and unit. And some advice that I would give for folks who are trying to get into law enforcement is, start making some good decisions now. Social media is a big one. Please be careful with your social media. Please be careful with the people who you choose to hang around with. Our background investigators are going to do a very comprehensive background check. They're going to, we like to say that they're going to ask you for 3 people who can tell us about you. And then we're going to go talk to those 3 people, and we're going to ask all of those 3 people to give us 3 more people who can tell us some things about you. So, it's a good time to, if you have issues with your neighbor, it's a good time to make friends with your neighbor. And we're going to talk to family members. We're going to talk to ex-boyfriends and ex-girlfriends. And because we really, really, really need to know who we're hiring and putting out on the street to serve the community of Long Beach.
Thank you, Officer Haas. And just touching on the background check process, I always tell my students that you may delete something in social media. It doesn't mean it's deleted by any means. But also, is there such a thing as a mistake of youth that you may find in someone's background? For example, marijuana is legal in California, but it is still a Schedule I drug at the federal level. What if someone admits that they smoked marijuana in a state where it's illegal?
So for the Long Beach Police Department, if you have smoked marijuana before, it is not a lifetime ban. There's just a period of time that needs to pass from the last time that you used it. And so part of the background process is they're going to ask if you have ever used any type of drugs, when's the last time you used it, and then based on the answers that you provide, they'll be able to determine if enough time has passed. And there is a set amount of time that you can be made aware of. So that somewhat answers that question. But there are certain drugs that if you have used them, they would be an automatic ban, lifetime ban. But we do have posted on our website, if you have made some, like you referred to, some mistakes of youth, we are completely aware that nobody is perfect. Okay, that we all make mistakes, and some would argue that that's actually what makes some great police officers, is the life experience that the captain referred to earlier. Being able to know, to have family members who may have struggled with addiction, to have family members who have struggled with, I personally have family members who struggle with mental illness. Those are all really good things that we may come across in a background that you may or may not have control over, but they may be tremendous tools for you coming out and working with the public.
Thank you very much. Captain Zizi, the same questions. Do you have any general advice for how one prepares for a career? What do they need to do now? And when it comes to the application process, can you describe what will occur and what are you looking for during the application process, including what will occur during the background check?
Okay, so preparing, I think Officer Haas hit it, is just live your life accordingly right now, like you're going to prepare to go into a law enforcement profession. Throughout this whole process, we talked about mistakes of youth. I can't stress enough to just tell the truth. If we find it out later and it was simply a mistake of youth and you didn't disclose it, that's where you get disqualified. We just don't deal with dishonesty. So if you disclose it and you can walk, your background investigator through it, what happened, there are great chances that we've accepted someone that, we rack it up to mistakes of youth. So please just tell the truth on everything that you can in that background process. The neighbors, Officer Haas hit that, just start making friends with your neighbors, because the neighbors are going to give us contacts with any of your exes, your relationships, and they may have negative material to give to us. So relationships itself, be aware of who you associate with and what they may say about you. So we have 5 to 6 phases of our process, anything from the oral examination to the written to the physical. The Highway Patrol in each of our divisions, we're in Southern Division, Los Angeles County. Our recruitment unit will actually practice with you through 3 of those. So if you go to that website, recruitment.chp.ca.gov, it will allow you to hook up with our recruitment unit and you can actually join them for a physical training session. They will prep you for the written exam. We're serious when we say we'll help guide you through. You just need to do the work. Be aware, a lot of people aren't aware, and we prep them as best we can, that we are a live-in academy in Sacramento. So you have to uproot from your home in Southern California and you have to live in the academy for 6 months. If you do everything right, if you pass all your tests, you can come home on weekends. But there are times when if you don't pass your tests, you need to stay and remediate on the weekend. So that's a tough thing for families to endure. Another thing with state employment that isn't like maybe private employment to get used to is being paid once a month as opposed to twice a month. So some people are stretching that paycheck till the end of the month. But the training process, so after the 6-month academy, you're assigned anywhere in the state based on criteria. And that is a year training process, and your early career is general patrol until you can get into another specialized assignment if that's your desire. But again, I go back to the truth. Just divulge everything that you possibly can to your background investigator, and they will appreciate it, and you will possibly be getting a job with any of us here.
Very good. Thank you, Captain Zizi. And we can, that's one thing that should be emphasized is that in our backgrounds, things can be discovered that we would like to not remember perhaps, but it is important to divulge it to the investigators. And, if it is a mistake of youth, then it'll be weighed one way or the other. Ms. Williams, could you please also comment on general advice in preparing for a career in federal corrections? What is the application process like, the recruitment process, and what is the background check process like?
Sure. So you start with the USA Jobs, applying for a job, and from the day that you apply for the job and it closes, it's about a 12-week period before getting hired on. So once you're hired on, I'm sorry, let me go back up. You come for an interview, and every applicant takes our core value assessment test, and they have to pass with a 68% in order to move on with the interview process. And what our core value assessment test is an integrity test. And every applicant has to take it. And if you fail it, you have to wait 12 months to take it again. After you apply, and if you're hired, your background investigation, in order for you to start in one of our ICT classes, you have to have like a clearance done as they're doing your background investigation. So again, I'm going to piggyback on them. You have to be completely honest. We are not allowed to share our guidelines, but you just never know what the guidelines are for each individual agency. We do law enforcement checks, criminal record checks, we do credit checks, and then they do talk to your neighbors, they do talk to your previous employers. And another thing that you have to do is get medically cleared in order to be employed by the Bureau of Prisons. So you go through a physical, a hearing test, eye examination, and all that stuff. And then after you start here, you are sent to our staff training academy. It's our federal law enforcement training center in Glencoe, Georgia for 3 weeks. And that's an additional 3 weeks of training where they give you the one-on-one of corrections. And then that's how you learn how to use the 3 firearms that we use here, self-defense and things like that.
Very good. Thank you very much. And Special Agent Rivera, the same questions. What general advice do you have for one who wants to prepare for a career with the FBI? And if you could, again, explain the application process, but also the background checking process that they might go through.
Sure. I typically like to sort of frame the background of using 3 overarching categories. So the first would be financial suitability, the second would be being in compliance with the FBI's drug policy, and the third would be criminal history. So for example, if someone's applying to special agent, automatic disqualifiers include a felony and also include a misdemeanor involving domestic violence or a more serious offense. In regards to the drug policy, there's a 3-year ban on marijuana use in any form, including CBD. There's a 10-year ban on any other drug use, including anabolic steroids without a prescription. And expect to have conversations with your throughout the process in regards to prescription use. That's not necessarily that, it's, many people have prescriptions for certain drugs. It's the examples we're discussing are, for example, when we have someone tell us that they borrowed their friend's prescription to pull an all-nighter, or they tried someone else's prescription because they just wanted to, get a sense of what it felt like or whatever. So those are the conversations that you'll be having throughout the process. And then when it pertains to financial suitability, we're looking for red flags such as filing for bankruptcy or defaulting on a student loan. Do you live above your means? The reality is that you're in a position of trust, and we want to minimize those, red flags in order to hopefully deter someone from using that against you and extorting you, right, for information. The standard is top secret clearance. In order to gain access to an FBI facility, that's the goal. If you can't get a top secret clearance, you can't be a special agent. In regards to the I guess, suggestion, I understand that this process is intrusive, right? I mean, we're literally asking everything about your life. And so you have to have the mindset that you have to be an open book, literally on every single decision you've ever made, even the decisions that you're not proud of or wish you could take back. You can't change the past. What I tell applicants to think about is this: you have complete control over the narrative you provide. When we ask you a question, you have 100% control on what you're going to say. Don't mitigate. Don't make excuses. Own up to it. Be accountable. No one's perfect, right? When you join the FBI, you're not going to suddenly, never make mistakes. You're going to continue to make mistakes, right? We're just human. We're going to make mistakes until, I don't know. But the goal here is that if you can be honest when you're getting hired, then we believe that when you're actually an employee and you make a mistake, that you'll own up to it. If you can't be honest in the application process, then why would you do that when you're actually hired? So that's kind of what I like, how I like to frame it. In regards to the steps, once you submit your application and you're deemed competitive, then you take an initial exam that's called a phase 1. I would say it's loosely, you can equate it to like a SAT, ACT sort of proctor testing center format. It's pass or fail. Once you pass that, you get invited to what's called a meet and greet. That's an informal conversation. You have a one-on-one with an agent, and also you meet the applicant coordinator. You're able to ask questions, etc. We go over the academy training, all that stuff. Then if you get ranked competitive there, you move on to the written exam and the panel interview, which is a 1-hour panel interview in front of 3 agents. And then you have to take a physical fitness test. And if you pass that, then there's obviously the background, and that takes, as long as it's going to take. And then once you successfully pass all that, then you can go to the academy. The academy is a 5-month training academy.
Thank you very much. And if I may, there are several themes here that everyone has alluded to. Certainly, just be honest during the application process, but also there's a great deal of rigor in the screening, in the actual vetting of people, and it's a fair vetting process, but it can be very, very rigorous. As you mentioned, that there is an intrusiveness to it also. Well, okay, once one gets past that and goes through training, that is in the past. So it may not feel good at the time. One will feel like they're in a fishbowl, but that is how the vetting process goes. So thank you very much for all of that. We have a question in our chat box in which it asks, are there any internship and actual job opportunities for international students in any law enforcement field, which is very interesting, actually, for international students who are here. But I'll just say that at CSU Dominguez Hills, in our criminal justice administration major, we require internships. We require them as reality checks and experience, and to build experience. So for international students, I'm wondering if each of you could please comment on whether that can be done, beginning with with Officer Haas.
So we do have some occasional opportunities like that. As long as the general answer is going to be as long as all of the qualifications are met by the applicants, and there may be some specific ones that may be that may need to be taken care of. But as long as the specifications for the internship or the job opportunity, which was also asked, as long as those are met, the background of the applicants, whether being an international student or not, shouldn't necessarily matter. But again, I have to emphasize that as long as all of the qualifications are met for the position, that shouldn't really be an issue.
Thank you very much. And Captain Zizi, please, this same question. Are there any internship or job opportunities for international students?
So for the position of a police officer or public safety dispatcher, we do not have internships. However, there are a variety of other job classifications that we do offer internships for at our Sacramento headquarters.
Thank you. Ms. Williams, the same question to you. Are there any internships or actual job opportunities for international students?
The only internship that the Bureau of Prisons currently, I believe, has is for our pre-doctoral students who are trying to become staff psychologists. And I don't believe that it's open to international students.
Interesting, though. Your internships are for pre-doctoral psychology students, essentially.
Yes, I know we have some in central office internships, but I'm not sure exactly what their titles are. I'm so sorry.
No, that's
I was
okay.
trying to ask
Thank
a
you.
question and see if someone can help me, but they didn't answer.
And Special Agent Rivera, internships and perhaps job opportunities for international students, do you engage in that?
The FBI does have an internship program, and unfortunately, the application process is the same as any other position in the Bureau. The TS clearance, so DOJ is going to ask that the applicant have a citizenship at the time they submit their application. So if an applicant does not have that, they're not eligible to apply, unfortunately.
So you said that it's the same for potential interns. Does that mean that the background check is just as rigorous?
So interns have to be able to pass a background that allows them to to meet the top secret standards. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
The major difference is obviously they don't have to go to the academy. They don't have to do the physical fitness test. They don't have to meet the age requirements. Those things are irrelevant. There's no age requirement for any other position in the FBI other than the law enforcement one. But the background is the same. TS clearance is the standard for every single job in the FBI, including the internship.
Interesting. Thank you very much. And for the panel, I'd like to move into the career path, if possible. Could you please, and what I would like to ask is, could you please describe the early career and then what a typical path looks like, if there is such a thing, including where one might be assigned, what kind of postings they might have, and then a nuts and bolts question, what are the benefits that one might receive in your particular agency? So Officer Haas, I'd like to begin with you. Again, what is the early career like? And then what does the path look like for one's career? And could you also include the perks, some of the benefits? What do those look like?
Of course. So the early career, after you finish that year of field training, you do go directly out working in the field, in patrol. And so we do have a ton of opportunities out there between detectives and narcotics and homicide and just about any investigative detail that you can think of. But we have directed enforcement teams that work in the patrol areas. We have bike details. We have we're lucky enough to be on the coast here, so we have boat details and people that get to work on the water all day. And so typically there needs to be 1 to 3 years of police officer experience for you to qualify to apply for any of those positions. Depending on the position, you may need to have 1 to 3 years of experience. And typically what you do is you receive an email. The department puts an email out that says, hey, these positions are open. Please submit a resume to this division, and then they schedule you for an interview, and then you get to highlight why you believe you're the best person for that job. So that's essentially the early career path. I will say there are a ton of perks that I'm sure we could all take up a whole hour talking about, but I'll just highlight some. At the Long Beach Police Department, we work what's called a 4-10 schedule. So you work 4 days in a row, and then you get 3 days off in a row. So every weekend is a 3-day weekend. We do have some other cool things like a deferred compensation plan, obviously medical and dental benefits, but we offer a lot of incentive pays, and I know there are a lot of college students listening into this. So we have education pay up through master's degree. If you come in with your master's degree, you make over $3 per hour extra with your master's degree. It's just a little bit below that for your bachelor's degree. You get paid more for speaking one of a selected group of second languages. If you do get to be on some of these specialized details that I mentioned earlier, there are incentive pays for that as well. And then there's a lot of other things that include military leave, GI benefits, a lot of stuff that we can talk about, the retirement package as well that we can talk about, and I can give more information on that. If you are interested in looking at that, joinlbpd.com is a great place to look up some of that if you don't have any specific questions right now.
Good, thank you very much. And again, to our participants, if you do have any questions about the career path, retirement, that sort of thing, could you please feel free to post your question. Captain Zizi, same question for you. Could you please describe the early career and what the path looks like, the career path? Are there interesting postings that people can be assigned to, and also the perks, the benefits that they may receive?
So as I mentioned, after the 6 months of Sacramento, you could be assigned anywhere in the state of California. There's a couple criterias like, do you own a house with children in school? Obviously, that would be a priority for us to get you closer to home. But after your year, you can start your transfer, you can start your move up, you can start collateral assignments. The CHP has canines, bike patrol, motorcycles. We have a boat in the Golden Gate Harbor, airplanes, helicopters, SWAT team. We have investigators and detectives. We're on a variety of county and federal task forces. If you'd like, and you'll find a great majority of officers, if you come to my station, that are absolutely thrilled with as a patrol officer their entire career. They just absolutely, it really gives back to them every time they go out there and serve the community. So I'd love for some of the participants here to interact with some of my officers. And then if you choose a promotion path, of course, you can do that. All of my other non-uniform positions, we have upward mobility programs where we're constantly encouraging you, if you desire, to promote to a management position in the civilian component. And then, of course, just like Long Beach, we have education incentives. If you speak a different language, incentives for that, and incentives for any job, a specialized job that you might take. Interesting postings. I once, as a brand new young officer, sought out a Point Arena resident post, which is just 50 miles south of Fort Bragg. And you are a solo officer paired with a solo deputy. You live in the community of Point Arena, and your beat is 50 miles of Highway 1 along the ocean. And you're called out in the middle of the night. You're on call if a tree goes down and you have to navigate 5 miles an hour along those curvy roads along the ocean to get that tree out of the road.
Thank you very much, Captain. And Ms. Williams, could you please also describe the early career and the general career path, interesting postings that may occur, and also any benefits, the perks of the job?
So our entry level is correctional officer, and with the correctional officer, you usually start at a GL5. So you go from a GL5 to 6 to 7, and that's kind of like the early stages of your career. And then you start promoting out to a GL8, which is a senior officer specialist. But because we're a federal prison, we have so many different departments. So it doesn't just stop at being a correctional officer. A lot of our correctional officers come in as a stepping stone into the Bureau of Prisons, and they go to like food service, or some of them go to recreation, become a sports specialist, or they go to our our facilities department, they'll become a maintenance worker supervisor, and they help build stuff here or fix things. So it's just, there's a wide range of different things that are different jobs that they can apply for after their 1-year probation is over. The benefits we have are great. We have our 401k, which is our thrift savings plan, which we match up to 5% of it. We have life insurance, medical and dental benefits, a lot of great things.
Good, thank you very much. And Special Agent Rivera, the same question. Could you describe the early career of one who works for the Bureau, and also what the career path looks like? Are there any interesting postings or assignments that one might have? And what are the benefits that are offered through the Bureau?
When you apply to this position, you do have to sign a mobility agreement. Essentially, what that means is that you are okay with being assigned to any investigative squad and any location upon graduation from the academy. During our academy training, we get to rank our top 3 investigative squads that we like to pursue, or in order of preference, the top locations. But it'll probably be reiterated probably several times during the application process that you could get sent to your number 50. So you have to be okay with that initially. Your first office assignment will be whatever the FBI needs you to be, wherever the FBI needs you to be. As far as what that progression looks like in your career, if you get assigned to a healthcare fraud squad and you want to remain there for your 20+ career, then that's possible. If you want to move to a different investigative squad, the FBI enforces over 300 federal statutes, so there's a lot to choose from. And so certainly there isn't a traditional career path. It's really dependent upon you and your interests, whether you want to pursue public corruption or human trafficking or crimes against children or counterterrorism. We are on probation during the first 2 years as new agents. That means that you're required to fulfill certain requirements and get a sort of a, I guess, positive assessment. You do have a training agent, but just like everyone else, regardless of whether you get assigned to a squad and you're the newest agent and there's a 15-year veteran, we all get assigned multiple cases. There is no difference in, I guess, hierarchy. The main difference will be that you're probably going to go out on interviews with different agents to try to get a feel for what it's like. Everyone has a different style, but the foundation is the same, right? You're going to develop whatever your style is when you're doing your interviews. As far as benefits, we have what is called a TSP, which is similar to a 401k that the FBI pays into, and we are permitted to contribute to that. We do have a mandatory retirement age of 57, which I think is kind of neat because, at 57, you're still pretty young, so you can go on to another adventure if you choose to. We have 2 programs within the organization. One is called the University Education Program, and the second is the Student Loan Repayment Program. Typically, what happens is the FBI will send an email to all of us. This is the application window for the University Education Program, which allows us as employees to submit a request to get another degree. And if approved, obviously not everyone gets selected because there's a budget. But if we get selected, then the FBI pays towards that degree. The Student Loan Repayment Program, I was fortunate to be part of that. So I submitted an application and I got approved, and the FBI assisted me with paying my student debt. And so those are some of the things that exist within our organization.
Good, thank you very much. And I'd like to pivot in our discussion. My students would be very interested in some of your responses to critical questions about the criminal justice system that we now see, because all of us are affected by the current societal political environment. It's there, you cannot ignore it. So I'd like to just ask a couple of general questions about what it is like to be a member of the criminal justice system in this particular environment, societal environment, because this is one that is very much in the news, but it also affects our politics, et cetera, as you know. So I'll ask this question slightly differently for each of the panelists. So Officer Haas, can you comment on, if you could, on whether the scrutiny of the police is something that is on your mind, and how does a patrol officer or another officer handle that? Because as we know, some people are skeptical of the police and some people might be very critical. How do you respond to that, though, as a member, as a sworn officer?
So one of the things that the Long Beach Police Department likes to focus on is public safety through partnerships. So we like to partner with the community, all different parts of the community, to make sure that public safety is top priority, and make sure that people are safe within our city, right? And I think one of the things that we like to do and we try to do is we didn't take an oath to protect some people. We took an oath to protect all people, and we treat people as fairly as possible. And as long as we can go out there and keep in our minds that our goal out there is to serve all of the citizens of Long Beach, or people who are visiting the city of Long Beach, regardless of the amount of scrutiny, whether or not people like us or not. The idea is to be professional, to go out there and love the people in our community, and just go out there and serve them the best way that we can.
Good, thank you. And I should have asked also, how do you assure the populace that their civil liberties, their civil rights will be upheld, be protected by law enforcement?
So communication is key. We are a department that likes to take the opportunity to explain how we do things and why we do things to with the community and for the community. Even if it's someone who we come across on a traffic stop or an investigative stop, we're encouraged to explain why we did what we did, why we made contact with them. And so there communication in that perspective, and just letting people know why we're doing what we're doing, how we're doing it to the best of our ability, so that there is transparency and there's an understanding of how we do policing here within the city of Long Beach.
Good, thank you very much. And Captain Zizi, the same kind of question to you because of the scrutiny that we see, and it's societal, it's political, it's media, et cetera, that we now see on law enforcement and the police in particular. Could you please comment on how you respond to that? And could you also comment on the protection of civil rights? And that's key. It's actually a case of trying to protect them.
So yes, again, I just transferred here May 1st to the South LA office. So of course, all of my young officers, the 105 officers here, want to know, what does the captain think? What does the commander expect of us? And quite frankly, I sit down with them at training days and say, you have to treat others as you would like to be treated. Everyone with respect, despite their station in life, despite their position, whether they're rich or poor, they have to be treated with respect, and they have to feel that respect, or they're never going to trust law enforcement to report crimes, to be a witness for us, to even call us during an emergency. And that's what we're all about. We're there to respond and mitigate the situation. And I think the great majority of officers get that, but they also know my expectation as their commander that I'm going to take on those people who don't meet our standards. And I think that's the job of every commander.
Thank you very much. And I should ask, what if there's a complaint against an officer, someone alleging that their civil liberties were violated, civil rights, whatever it might be? How do you respond to that?
So the Highway Patrol has a long history of policy and procedures on how we file complaints against officers. A sergeant will actually be assigned to investigate this incident. Fortunately, we have onboard cameras on our patrol vehicles, so hopefully that would help in deciding what exactly happened during this situation. But I can assure you, any complaint on officers from my station would be thoroughly investigated.
Good, thank you very much. And just anecdotally, one thing I have tried to explain to my students is that, yes, we see a lot of video that is coming out now, but the cameras are actually a protection for the police also, because if one does have to use physical restraints or whatever, and it's done correctly, it might not look good to a civilian through civilian eyes, but it is a protection also for the police. So I'd also like to just pivot a little bit in my question to Ms. Williams. You are in corrections, and there's a criticism, general criticism that we hear occasionally, especially from students, about mass incarceration, about how inmates are treated in terms of rehabilitation versus punishment. How do you respond to those kinds of questions? Because they do also impact this notion of protecting civil rights and civil liberties.
I'm sorry. We, what Captain Zizi said is like, we always teach in our classes, you want to respect the inmates a certain extent, because they are humans, we're not here as judgment, and we do teach that in our classes. I'm so sorry, can you repeat the question again?
Sorry, yes.
I'm so sorry.
For in the area of corrections, what we hear, especially on campus, but also in society, is that there's a problem with mass incarceration. I mean, that's where the societal and political critiques come from. But then this question of how inmates may be treated by the system. Are their civil rights, civil liberties protected? Because these individuals have been convicted, but are they being rehabilitated as opposed to simply being punished? How are they treated by the system? And so how would you respond to that kind of criticism?
Like I said earlier, we have programming here. So they're not here just to serve their sentence and being punished. We are also helping them become better citizens as they reach their release date. So they are forced to work. They don't get to lay in bed all day. They have to have a job. A lot of them have to get their GEDs. It's part of their programming in order to be released. So I think that they are treated fairly with that, and they are given the opportunity to still live a normal life inside prison so that they can, the rehabilitation into the community when they leave is at a much higher level.
Good. Thank you very much. Because there is one bottom line that most inmates will be released. They will be walking amongst us after they serve their time or pay their debt to society, as they say. And so, Special Agent Rivera, similar questions, but I'm going to pivot slightly because of your employment with the Bureau. So there, it's arguably the Federal Bureau of Investigation is always under the lens. It's always being scrutinized, similar to how local police are. And the critique is similar that how does the Bureau protect civil liberties and civil rights in its everyday duties? But what we see now is a fairly intensive political environment. And one thing that we see is there's truly domestic extremism, as we know, which we don't have to get into, that is going on. How is the Bureau involved with simply assuring that the homeland is being protected against extremist behavior, but also against crimes that go across state borders, et cetera? How do you respond to this criticism that perhaps the Bureau is partial and not impartial in these duties?
I would say that's a fairly common question. There's a perception that based on whatever the political spectrum is, that somehow our job changes. And I would have to say that is not accurate. My job as a special agent is to uphold the Constitution. It has never changed as far as whatever the political situation is. It doesn't impact my job. My job is very clear cut. There's rules, there's certain, as far as, to the question of domestic terrorism or extremism, we're a small organization in the sense that, there's about a little over 13,000 federal law enforcement officers within the organization and about 14,000 professional staff. And so we absolutely collectively work with local, state, and federal, not only law enforcement organizations, but private organizations. Some examples of that are InfraGard, which is a private entity that consists of professionals in private organizations that give us feedback on vulnerabilities and infrastructure that we should be looking at, whether it be Citizens Academy, which is comprised of people in the community that give us suggestions as to the lack of FBI presence or the things that we're not doing, because we absolutely don't know what's going on in the community without getting people's feedbacks, right? So we rely on the public's assistance to be able to do our job. We have squads that tackle whether it be counterterrorism, counterintelligence. We have LEGATs, even though the FBI has jurisdiction domestically, we have 67 LEGATs overseas. And those LEGATs, in conjunction with our US embassies, not only provide training, collaborate and liaison with governments in other countries in order to be able to assist with US investigations. So there's a lot of conversations and collaboration with other organizations in order for us to learn, because there's no way we know everything, right? So we're continuously trying to learn on how to do our job better, to get feedback on what we should be doing or what we're not doing right, or what we need to do better. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you
Okay.
did. And one reason why I asked it the way I did is because, throughout my research, my career, the FBI is always under microscope about whether they are upholding, the Constitution essentially, or if they have political motivations and that sort of thing. So yes, thank you very much for that. And it's interesting you mentioned assignment overseas. Many people don't realize that the FBI has a presence in our embassies also. Thank you. And what I'd like to do now is begin to wind down a bit and get into final comments of commentary, and also to entertain any final questions that participants may have. So the final question to the panel would be this. as part of your duties, your vocation, why should the participants or students truly consider applying to your particular agency? Is there anything more that you can say that might cause them to have that career pivot, especially if they're already in a career, to select your agency? What would your final sales point be, essentially, for anyone who might be interested? So, Officer Haas, I'll begin with you. What final comments do you have to perhaps motivate an individual to apply to your particular agency?
So aside from some of the things that we've already highlighted of just the different opportunities to work with the community, care for our community, love on our community, I'll talk about one thing and then I'll share a little bit of a personal story. We care here at the Long Beach Police Department. We care about our community and we care about each other. We had touched on some benefits earlier. My beautiful wife is one of 5 children. Unfortunately, the youngest of those 5 took her own life 2 years ago. One of the things that our police department does here is we've partnered with a counseling agency because, and I'm sure the other folks on the panel will agree, this job is not easy. This job is a lot of things. It is rarely easy. Okay. And the reason I talk about my wife and her experience is because the love and the care that came from our police department and the partnership that we have with that counseling group provided resources to my family, not just me. I'm the only one who works for the police department, but it provided resources to my family to get through things that had nothing to do with law enforcement. And so I share that with you just to let you know that, the job is not always looking good in your uniform and driving fast or cracking the big case. It's the everyday department community taking care of each other. And our department here just, we have plenty of opportunities to love on each other and to provide resources, not just to us, but to our families and our loved ones as well. And it's just a great place to be.
Thank you very much. And Captain Zizi, the same question to you. And final commentary about why one should select the California Highway Patrol if they are making that pivot in their lives, in their career. Why should they consider your agency as opposed to others?
Well, we talked about the ability to move throughout the state. So if you decide to move to the desert and that's more affordable housing, you transfer to a station out there and that's where you work. So there is that advantage. But I don't want to sugarcoat, really be focused on public service. There are so many times, and everyone on the panel can agree, that it's just a thankless job. And if you're doing this for the accolades, if you're doing this for the pat on the back, that may not come. I just got a call from a resident of an officer who paid for her flat tire, took her to an auto body shop and paid for the tire. She didn't have any money. And I believe that that's 1 out of 10 residents who would have actually called to thank us. And I'm honored to be able to thank that officer. But you have to have that personal drive within yourself to go out and help others. Again, the thankless aspect. So I would just encourage you to search your soul and say, is this what I truly want to do? Is go out and help and serve others and make a difference. And if so, sign up with one of us, all of us.
And that sense of service has come through from each of the panelists, which I greatly respect. Thank you. And Ms. Williams, the same questions for you, just final comments about why one should consider becoming a professional in your particular field. Why should they select your agency, but also just your field, as opposed to other paths that one could take when it comes to the criminal justice system?
So we have 116 facilities across the United States, even including Hawaii and Puerto Rico. So if you're mobile, it's not just Terminal Island who's hiring, it's everyone. And the opportunity of being mobile and your chances of promotion is higher. We just recently had a visit from the director of the Bureau of Prisons. He came here last week and he told us the story is how he started at entry level as a correctional officer, and now he's the director of the Bureau of Prisons. So the opportunities are just huge as long as you're willing to move around and just grow with the Bureau of Prisons. I've been here, for almost 21 years. I could retire at 46. So when you start young and you only have to do 25 years, it's just like the great opportunity that we're given.
Thank you very much. And actually, that idea of retiring and moving on to a second career, if you want, I've heard repeatedly, actually. So well done. And Special Agent Rivera, I'd like to know what your final commentary would be on why one should select the Bureau as opposed to perhaps other career paths within the criminal justice system.
I would say that we spend more time at work than we do at home. And time is something you can't get back, right? So, I can only speak for myself as far as the reason why I pursued this career in this particular agency. And really the truth is that you know yourself better than anyone else. So try to identify how it is you want to invest your day-to-day. And that's a very personal choice that no one can make except you.
And thank you very much. Well, I'd like to commend everyone on a very interesting discussion, interesting conversation. So thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure meeting you. I'm at Cal State Dominguez Hills. If you would like to contact me directly, I say that to both the panelists and also participants, please do so. We have an excellent criminal justice administration program. So thank you. And I wish everyone the best.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you to all the panelists. It was a great session. It exceeded my expectations. And I wish I was younger and I could have a second career. I'd come work for all of you. So I really appreciate your motivation and making the case that public service is definitely an excellent career choice and a very rewarding experience. So thank you, everyone, and appreciate those of you that attended. And if you have any follow-up questions, my contact information is on the series publication, and I'm happy to answer personal questions and redirect you to any of the panelists if you would like to talk to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care.